Stella, thanks a lot for being here. And I first met Stella a few months ago, and we got to hear a little bit more about how BYD is expanding here in the U.S. and using Los Angeles area as their hub, and how they're originally from Shenzhen, and really one of the leading, if not the leading, electric vehicle maker in the world. They are also invested in by Warren Buffett, so that gives them an extra plus as well. But Stella, tell us a little bit about why BYD came to the Los Angeles metro area in the first place. You could, I know that you led the expansion. You've been leading the global expansion into Europe and then North America, and you really set up this base here in the Los Angeles area. So why LA area?
Yeah, this is actually a very good question. So we always call BYD growth as now we are in the second stage. So the first stage for us is survival, so get a business. So actually, back to 1999, I went to Europe, set up BYD first overseas European office in Rotterdam, and 1 year later, I came to Chicago to set up the office in Chicago. But my goal is very simple. I took one container of battery and one engineer with me, and we came there. The target is I sell the full container of battery, then I can get the cash, then I can continue pay the rent. So then my target at that time is mainly find the customer from the nickel cadmium battery from emergency lighting, power tools, and the small battery pack customer. So we have been very successful. In 2001, we got a business from Motorola for their cell phone. So this make BYD become big international company, also help us build the world-class quality system. So then back to 2011, Mr. Wang thinking about the expansion. At that time, BYD already is a car maker and also biggest battery maker in the world, and also we are the second largest cell phone component maker in the world. Then we invest in solar panel, so it's become several billion size company. So then we start to have bigger dreams. We want to create a big international brand. So remember, first one is survival. For us, is grow the business to be sell the products to the leading company, become one of the lead player in the industry. But then the second dream is want to build a branding, which is I think a lot of Chinese company missing. We don't have brand, we don't have innovation. So then in order to do the branding, then we try to select which place we should go. But the US definitely will be the one of the, besides China, is the biggest market. Yeah, and also it's the toughest market, it's the most challenging market. So then we were thinking about if we can be successful in US, then we can really achieve this goal. So, but where we're landing, so talking about the logistics, it's like a multiple, I think more than 10 flights, always daily departure from Hong Kong or Guangzhou to Los Angeles. And then it's the shortest distance. And then also California is the greenest state in the world, not only in US, but also California is a very open, multinational state. Culturally, it's very easy to adopt a foreign brand. And the third one is most important, is a very innovative company. You will meet a lot of kind of very crazy people with very crazy idea. But they normally, a lot of times they can make this kind of crazy idea to become reality. So that's and then plus, California, Los Angeles, in most of Chinese mind, is Hollywood. It's like a very high profile and like a movie industry. So this will give us some spots. Maybe it's like you can easily build in your brand in a very stylish, fashionable way. That's the reason we came to LA.
Those sound like great reasons, and I think the audience should take note of that. So you talk about the Chinese company going global and the dream and the innovation. And what about this strategy here? How are you introducing BYD to the American audience? It's an unknown brand, really, in the U.S. so far? I mean, it has been unfamiliar, but how are you making it familiar in the U.S. and
Yeah.
what are the vehicles that you're introducing to the market?
Yeah. So actually, I like this question. This question is a challenge, but also it's the same. I think most of Chinese company facing the challenge they are facing. So first, as a reputation, Chinese brand is always like a cheap, low cost, and then low quality. This means cheap. When they say cheap, it means it's two layer. So then second, then Chinese company doesn't care branding. So, but in order to change that, so if then we in the 2008 we have an initial say, okay, we come to US, we can sell our car, then we have competitive price, then we can sell the volume, then we can just repeat the story like a Korean and the Japanese came to US 30 years ago, 50 years ago, then we can be successful. But after I visited several dealers, done some studies, then I said, oh, no, this will be not the direction we go. Because now the whole world is in the different position. We'll transition from the a traditional industry to the innovative industry. And this is come from internet. Maybe 10 years from now, the people's life will be different. So the 3G internet will change our life. Second is this kind of Uber business will completely change our concept for how to use in the car, how to own the car. So then third one is because of the environmental pressure and also the resource for our energy, like oil resource, is a limit. So then we could not continue burning the oil like this. Then we could not continue produce CO2 like this. So we have some solution. But this, in the future, maybe 10 years from now, every people sitting here, you will drive either EV or plug-in hybrid car. So then it's like the whole industry is a transaction to the future transportation concept. Then the whole industry is really target to reduce CO2, to taking care of climate change. So this actually gave BYD a very good chance. We can reposition ourselves and then rebuild BYD brand as an innovative company, and then with a green company, like a green vehicle company. So repeat car, actually, some data I need to share with you. By June of the sales data, BYD already the world leading EV company in the world. We overtook Tesla, Nissan Leaf, and other companies. So then in July, August, this kind of number will continue increase for BYD. I think in the future, you'll see BYD will stay in the leading position for global EV sales, like a ranking for maybe for a long time. Yeah. So this actually mean what? Means like we can introduce BYD, the Chinese company, in different way than to tell people BYD or Chinese company has a brand, has innovation, has technology. But how to achieve that, to tell the story? Because then we deal with a very complex idea, which normally Chinese company missing is like a medium marketing, very strong like a marketing PR effort. So normally we're joking, most of Chinese company like an engineer company, they can do very good product, but they don't know how to market. So then our strategy here is like let's find some area BYD has no competition. We're very strong, and then we use this spot to build our like a branding. We call the brand awareness, and then this means like a BYD, for example, electric bus. We compete with all the company very small, and the BYD there is very competitive. But then we capture the leading position, shown BYD brand, and the next step we can go to the other area. For example, the electric trucks and also electric fleet. And then after we build the foundation very strongly, then we can move to consumer car.
Okay, so when do you think the consumer car will be here in the U.S. market? So you already have the buses, right?
Yes.
And you have the trucks.
Yeah, next year we will have trucks.
Oh, okay, next year trucks. And what about cars?
In 3 years.
In 3 years, okay.
And then you will see, like even for the bus industry, then they recognize BYD is not a cheap company. It's like a high-tech, high quality and reliable technology. So this carry on this brand image to our electric trucks. This make our electric truck sales very simple, easy. Once we say, oh, this BYD will produce e-trucks now, then all the people jump in because they already been realized BYD is the company they can trust. Right. So then we don't need to do too much sales work. Okay. So I hope like maybe after 2 years, it's happening the same way for our consumer car.
All right, so you have some of the buses in some metro areas, right?
Yes.
And LA is coming up, or Pasadena maybe?
Yeah, Andy, I need to talk to you.
Yeah, maybe. Pasadena electric buses.
Because Pasadena, myself live in San Marino. I enjoy the neighborhood of Pasadena. So you got especially in my one hidden action plan, I have some project working with Pasadena art schools, art center. So as you mentioned, they are one of the top 3 car design school. So we already have some agenda. So I think we already working with AVTA, located in Lancaster, and then also Stanford University, and then also now LAMTA, we already deliver 5 buses. Okay. So we're gonna continue to deliver 20 buses. At the same time, so we're already working with Google, Apple for their coach bus, electrify their bus. So a lot of things happening in California already.
Great,
yes.
Great. And you have the trucks at the ports, right?
Yes, we're now working with LA and also Long Beach port very intensively. Want to introduce our electric trucks. They're waiting for a sample. Okay. So to be here end of this year or beginning of next year.
Are you showcasing the BYD brand on the vehicles?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so BYD stands for?
Build your dreams.
Right.
Yeah. That's our dreams. The bigger dreams, we want to really taking care of climate change. Build a dream with less depend on the fossil fuel, and then reduce CO2. Is taking care of our offspring. And then the selfish dream is make BYD global international company, well-known company in next 50 years, 100 years. Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to ask you what's next. So that sounds like a huge dream.
Yes.
And getting from there to tomorrow is your charge, right? Under your charge.
Yeah.
Overseas. So Stella, what about your own background? You grew up in China, and
yeah, I grew up in China, just like a regular family, and then but my parents was kind of follow Mao Zedong's period, then sent from the a rich area to the poor area, help build up a rural area. So I grew up in Yunnan, but my hometown is in Zhejiang. So, but then I went to Shanghai Fudan University, then graduated for 3 years. I found the BYD and joined BYD, working as a marketing manager, and then grow up as sales manager. Then I deeply remember back to 1996, then I just joined BYD. Miss Wang said, yeah, you should go overseas to set up an exhibition. So then you should go to Hong Kong to live there, set up a Hong Kong office. In 1999, then saying go to Europe, set up a European office. But at that time, my English is really broken English. And the first time living overseas, have no idea how to drive, have no idea how to live over there. So it's a lot of challenge. But myself grow my career with BYD together. I think, yeah, I really enjoy it. Today, every day working in BYD, I feel it's an adventure. So I need to learn a lot of new stuff. Yeah.
Great, great. Thanks, Stella. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Look forward to BYD. JD is the VP and General Manager for LeTV's international mobile business. And he joined the online streaming content service just earlier this year from Lenovo. So JD, welcome. And take it away, Jing-Jing.
Awesome. Great to see you here, JD. So the last time, or the first time I'd met you in person was at the launch event of LeTV's mobile division in Silicon Valley. That was back in March, I believe. And then since then, we got to chat a little last night, and you told me that your life is all over the place. You're spending a week in Beijing, a week in Redwood City, Silicon Valley, and then a week here. what's been going on, and can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing? Who is LeTV?
Great. So before I jump into that, I'd like to express my appreciation for everybody to be here. As Andy said, this is the early shift, and appreciate everybody filling up with coffee and coming to participate in the event. Again, thanks. I appreciated Andy's comments on Pasadena. We at LeTV, when we came to the US, we first came to LA and started something called Love Vision Pictures. So we have strong roots here in LA. Thanks to Rebecca for inviting me and recognizing LeTV, and appreciated Stella's comments earlier, because a lot of her challenges and BYD challenges are a lot of the challenges that we face here at LeTV about establishing a brand and some of the challenges for a Chinese company coming to the US. So again, thank everybody for attending. And then now to answer the question at hand, which is, I think many of you probably have not heard about LeTV. If you're over here, if you're from China, you probably have, because over there it's a household name. LeTV is basically the Netflix of China, or as like one of my colleagues likes to say, Netflix is the LeTV of the US. We actually preceded them. We were founded back in 2004. And we are a streaming over-the-top service of premium content. Even more so than Netflix, we have all of the top movies in China, 5,000 movies, 100,000 TV shows, and since our beginning, as opposed to some of the other video sites in China, we're all above board, meaning we purchase the rights, we stream the content, and people subscribe to our service. So that's kind of our baseline business. And that's led, the success of that business and the dominance of that business in China has led to a $21 billion valuation on the Chinese stock market. So we're not a startup, we're quite a big company. And then from there, the company, kind of like Netflix and HBO, decided that this business is really good. How can we do more? And so we started to get into content development. So we created a subsidiary to basically make movies and TV shows. And that subsidiary came to LA, Love Vision Pictures, and established a joint venture and is actually actively working with Hollywood to build, to make content as well as help distribute US content in China. And that business has been very, very successful. And again, that's kind of our roots here in LA. And then the company, or the founder, Stella mentioned that here in California there are a lot of crazy people with crazy ideas. I think what you're noticing in China recently is there are also a lot of crazy people with crazy ideas. And Jia Yueting, our CEO, is one of those people. He's kind of a visionary, and he kind of had this idea. He thought, we build all this premium content, or we create all this premium content, we license it, and how do people consume that content? Well, he thought in the future they're gonna basically consume it in one of 6 screens. Most ubiquitous would be the smartphone. That screen, people will see content. The tablet, a PC, a home TV, the theater down the street, and then in the future in the car, electric cars, and when cars start to drive themselves, or when you have Uber drivers, if you're sitting in the back seat, it's an excellent opportunity to consume content as well. So with that, we decided to get into, or we kind of recognized that to do that, you have to build an ecosystem. You have to build, if you control from the creation of content to the consumption of content and all the steps in between, you can create a better experience for users. So a couple of years ago, we got into building smart TVs. So we went from the content business to the hardware business. Once we started building smart TVs in China, in a very short time, I think 18 months, we rose to be #1 in several key categories. So it was kind of quite revolutionary in a very competitive market for a company who has a brand and content to come out of nowhere and really take a strong leadership position. And I think part of the reason was because Chinese consumers recognized, or that they felt like once they started to buy our TVs, they could get our content in a way that was better picture quality, better sound quality, easier to navigate. So all of these advantages. So with that success, we then decided to get into smartphones. And that's kind of what brings me here today. So it's kind of a long-winded way to get to the answer of your question, but 2 months ago, we launched in China our smartphone business. That launch, prior to launch, we accepted pre-registrations for our smartphones in China, and in the 3 weeks prior to our May 19th launch, we had 13 million customers sign up to buy our smartphones. On the day we launched, our first shipment from the factory was 200,000 units. That sold out in 3 seconds. It was one of the fastest flash sales in history. And what you're noticing is, since then, we've been on a tear, grabbing market share in a very competitive Chinese smartphone market. So with that baseline, our CEO kind of decided that this was the year that LeTV would start to move abroad in a really hyper-aggressive way. So I joined the company and am responsible for pushing kind of our hardware outside of China, because that's the thing that moves very quickly. So before the end of the year, you will be able to purchase LeTV smartphones here in the US. And we're very, very excited because the LeTV brand is going to come here. I know many of you haven't heard of it today, but hopefully 6 months from now or 1 year from now, you'll look back and say, I remember that J.D. Howard talking about LeTV. Now I know.
Awesome. That's an incredible story. What would you say distinguishes LeTV from other Chinese tech companies that are going global? So from an international perspective, specific to the US.
So I would say the number one thing that distinguishes us from other Chinese companies, I think Stella hit on a very, very important point, which is the perception or the stereotype is for Chinese companies is cheap, average, so not, average quality and not really a brand. And I think what distinguishes us from other Chinese companies is, I think our leadership understands the importance of brands. So when we come to the US, it will not be hiding behind other people's brands. It will be our brand front and center. And the second thing is, as I've gone around and started to lay the groundwork to expand our business here, a lot of people I talk to have the impression that Chinese companies, one of the reasons they don't have brand is because they're not willing to spend the money to build a brand, because it takes investment. And I can tell you that even in China, LeTV has grown very fast, very aggressive, and to do that, it really requires a lot of energy and effort to build the brand. And when you're an internet company that moves very fast, kind of like other companies, you build the brand by having quality products and services, and then you get the word out in the most efficient way. In China, our PR marketing department is a machine. We use social digital heavily. And so I think Stella kind of hit on a point earlier as well, which was we're in a different time. This is not 5 years ago. This is not 10 years ago. Even in the smartphone business, I think that since the introduction of the iPhone in 2007, kind of the advent of smartphones, there's kind of a view that if you want to build a smartphone brand in the United States, you have to spend billions and billions of dollars, and you have to be in newspapers, and you have to be in print, and you have to have TV commercials and all these things. And I think what's happened is, with the advent of the internet, I think there are ways to really grow a brand with social and digital in ways that didn't exist before.
Awesome. So what would you say leadership, including yourself, would say is the strategic sort of long-term purpose of having an office, a physical office in Silicon Valley as well as here? Walk us a little bit through, long-term, what are those offices going to focus on?
Right. So I think one of the things, our CEO has I mentioned earlier his vision. A vision's only as good as your ability to execute and make it happen. So in our case, what we recognize, I think many other Chinese smartphone brands, even the one I used to work for, they tend to keep America last, because America is probably the hardest. So they tend to go places where it's easy. They go to Southeast Asia, they go to Middle East, Latin America, Russia. There are many other smartphone markets where the competition isn't as intense and fierce as the United States. I think our CEO, he's a little bit of a contrarian. That's how he was very successful in building the business in China, is going, when everybody else was going right, he went left. When everybody else was going down, he went up. So when we looked at international expansion, the US and America is the number one stop. Why? Why do that? Because the reasoning is, if you can compete successfully in the United States, you can compete successfully anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. So with that baseline, then you say, well, then how would you go about this? How do you start to recognize and deliver on this six-screen strategy and deliver products and services that Americans would want to buy? And so if you look in the United States, one of the central locations for innovation in the US is Silicon Valley. So we announced back in March, April timeframe that we're building an office there, and we're hiring, 5 people a week in the office right now. We're expanding very rapidly in Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is going to become kind of the technical brains, if you will, of our R&D organization. We still have massive R&D resources that are delivering lots of products and services for the Chinese market in Beijing, and I would call that the brawn, the people who are also very, very good programmers, and they're going to basically deliver what the Silicon Valley office kind of designs and kind of puts together. And then the third key to this component, because I think one of the key things to recognize is that the smartphone market is a little bit stale. In technology, every 5 to 7 years, there are disruptions. Things come along and upset the status quo. I think in smartphones, we're kind of at that point. There needs to be something new and different. Somebody needs to challenge the status quo and bring something different, and that's going to be LeTV. So when our phones launch here, you'll start to understand a little bit of what I'm talking about. But basically, when you have a smartphone that is deep linked with content and you can offer a better experience, so the colors are sharper on the screen, you get a better visual experience. The auditory experience, you hear the sound, the music clearer. When you can offer these things combined with unique content that you can only get on your phone, I think that's a recipe for disruption. It's a major recipe for disruption. So as we move forward, this content piece and original content is going to be really, really critical. Hence, we have a major office here in LA, and it's already staffed up and it's growing very, very quickly. So in a sense, we have this kind of 3-city strategy. It creates a little havoc in my personal life because I have to spend a week in Beijing, a week in LA, a week in San Francisco, and then maybe a week at home. But I think that's the world we live in, and again, I think part of the focus of this meeting is to talk about the bridges between between LA and China, Silicon Dragons, and I think we're a great example of that.
So quickly, the product itself, I know you're a veteran of the mobile industry, and your eyes completely light up when you talk about LeTV's phone. I mean, clearly you're using it, and sales have gone off the charts, at least in mainland China. Can you give me sort of a 30-second pitch of really what distinguishes this product? So you mentioned content, but to a US audience, like, what is that going to look like for maybe me as a consumer looking to buy a new phone?
So that's a very, very good question, and yes, my eyes light up because our product, so I've been in the smartphone industry for a long time. So one of the table stakes, the first things you have to understand is consumers we have all been trained to look for the new and better features. So it's a lot of it, has been about what's the spec, what's the camera, the screen size, the processor speed, the applications. So you kind of weigh all of that, and then you look at the price, and you say the spec times the price, and then you get you kind of make a decision and buy a phone. In our case, we think we're going to add a third element to the decision criteria, which is content. So, number one, we're innovating probably more than many of our competitors around this concept of content and content consumption. So again, our CEO has this idea, if you own the ecosystem from end to end, you can guarantee and give the consumer a different, better experience. Our phones, if you look at, our engineers figured out ways to render color on the screen in such a way that we get 30 to 50% more color coverage of the color spectrum on our screens. So when you see it, put it side by side against other leading smartphones, you can see the difference. It's visibly different. When you listen, you turn on sound on the speakers. We've put in software that creates a much clearer, crisper sound. So whether you're using the speakers in the phone or earphones, you can kind of hear a difference. It's more like you're there as opposed to kind of far away, which you get in some of the other phones.
I think that's all the time we have for today to stay on schedule. Thank you so much, JD.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody's time.